Welcome to the Intake Podcast. We're your hosts, Carson Miller and Travell McManus, and this is the podcast where we dive into the media shaping our world today.
And the media shaping our world today is the Fantastic Four. We are super excited to be talking about the new Fantastic Four movie, Fantastic Four First Steps. It is the latest entry into the MCU and the final superhero story that we are going to get in 2025. And so we're excited to stay focused on Fantastic Four today. That's going to be a little difficult for us, having just seen Superman a few weeks ago. But our next podcast, we are going to dive into Fantastic Four versus Superman, but also expanding out and looking at Captain America Brave New World and Thunderbolts, along with Superman and Fantastic Four, to kind of get a whole picture of where the superhero genre has kind of ended up in 2025 and what is going on in the different universes as we move forward into what comes next. So that is what we are teasing for next time. And just as the big spoiler warning, we are going to go into spoilers in depth. So if you have not seen the movie yet and you care about those things, bookmark this, save it somewhere, and then come back and check us out once you've seen the movie. I think it'll add a lot to the discussion, having seen it, because it is a very visually intense and inspiring movie. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Travell, kind of go through, let us know about the movie.
Yes, and so we were talking about Fantastic Four First Steps, directed by Max Shackman, who also did WandaVision, and it was written by Josh Friedman, Eric Pearson, and Jeff Kaplan, and it is starring Pedro Pascal, Vanessa Kirby, Ebon Moss-Bachrach, and Joseph Quinn. And we begin this journey in a different multiverse in Earth 828, 4 years after the space trip that gave birth to the Fantastic Four and their cosmos powers. We see a nervous Reed and Sue Richards discover that they are going to be parents, and after breaking the good news, their celebration is cut short as the harem of Galactus, Shia LaBeouf, aka the Silver Surfer, and if you've listened to some of our older podcasts with Mark, you know a lot of context behind that. So that was exciting to see play out on screen. She made her appearance and delivered a message that this Earth is marked for death. And this sends our four heroes on a quest to save their planet, but most importantly, their family. So, Carson, we didn't get to see this together. Unfortunately, we saw this about 3 hours apart yesterday, but we're about 15 hours fresh from it. What were your initial thoughts at 12:30 as you were driving home last night?
Man, genuinely surprised in a good way. As if we think back to when we ranked our top 10 most anticipated movies, I think, if I remember correctly, you had Superman ranked number one and you had Fantastic Four number one,
yes,
and Superman number two, and I had Fantastic Four number two and Superman number one. And I walked out of Fantastic Four in love with this movie. Okay. Genuinely love it. I don't throw around the word perfect very often, especially when it comes to movies. And this movie does have some flaws, but as a Fantastic Four movie, it is perfect. And like, the MCU is back. This is the MCU firing on all cylinders, and it's probably the least connected to the overarching story out of any of the stories we've gotten since Endgame. And I loved it. I loved the familial aspects. I loved the relationships, the acting, the visuals. At its core, it's a sci-fi movie, and I love classic sci-fi movies. I can't get enough of them. You show me a sci-fi movie, I'm happy. And so I loved it, and we can dig into it more. I'd love to hear what your thoughts were, because I'm pretty sure I'm a little bit on the high side on that, but genuinely, like, my heart is full.
That is really good. I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed the film. It wasn't perfect, but it was really strong. There were so many things that were different about it that I just really loved and appreciated. They just, like you said, like, this was just a fresh start. There wasn't any of these Easter eggs or these superhero dumps or just the plot point getting beyond itself. It was very contained and very restricted, and that was his strength. It was not a weakness. It was very much his strength. The world that we got tossed into was beautiful and fun and almost fairy tale like, where there was a harmony about it that I really enjoy seeing. We're not seeing a lot of media today where we're seeing the world just kind of work together in unison. Right. So seeing that was just really cool to see, and not your typical Marvel story. There were just so many things that I just like, the color palette, the way they
Yep.
filled this blend of, and it makes sense with, the director of WandaVision kind of coming in and using that 1960, 1970
Mm-hmm.
aesthetic with this futuristic Jefferson's feel that just
Right.
was just so cool to see. Like,
Yep.
I was so jealous of that, their house, their penthouse. I
Yeah.
want to live there. That's how I would want my house to look like. And so
Yeah.
I did really enjoy it. Like, there were things, like you said, like there are things that can pull you away from it, but
Mm.
overall, it was a great movie. And that's something that we've kind of talked about before with Marvel, of like,
Yeah.
it got to a point where not only were they not making great superhero movies, like these movies just were not considered great movies. This was a
Right.
great movie, just across
Yes.
the board. It was great. And so yeah,
Yeah.
I was really happy with it.
It went beyond a superhero story. It was a story about a family and uh, in this futuristic world facing a threat. I mean, to their family and to the world, but mostly their family, and that it went above and beyond the superhero genre for me. It transcended it, and I what I really enjoyed about it was the dynamic between the four of them. And I think
Hmm.
that's the biggest compliment to the creators of this movie and Matt Shackman for his direction is that I genuinely believed that these four people had known each other their entire lives, and the past 4 years has been new for them, but they are kind of established in who they are with these new powers coming out of the space adventure that they had previously and getting it hit with the cosmic rays or whatever it was that gave them their powers, allows this world to breathe. And I think that's the most important thing. When you said it was a contained story, it was. And yet we went into the deep depths of space and uh, light. They were traveling at light speed, and we had a subterranean country on this earth with run by a guy named Mole Man, and like there's just so many fantastical and sci-fi elements, but the story did feel contained, and I think part of that is that in this world they are the only four heroes. There's
Yeah.
no other superheroes. There's no Avengers. There's no X-Men. There's none of that to kind of bog the world down or to make superpowers seem less special. In this world, they are special, and that world relies on them for their saving. So much so that at a certain point in the movie, they get back from interacting with Galactus for the first time, and the questions are, how did you defeat him? It is assumed that they defeated him. And
Hmm.
for the first time, they have to say, we didn't, but we're going to. And I
Yeah.
think that allowed it to be more believable and for allowed you to totally invest knowing that there wasn't going to be some character from another story pop in and distract you or cause confusion within the movie. It was very much focused on these four characters, because when you listed off the character list, I think you could add maybe two more names,
Yeah.
three more names to that list
Really
of
too. Yeah.
you have Reed Richards, Sue Storm, Johnny Storm, Ben Grimm, who's the Thing. You have the Silver
Uh,
Surfer,
and Galactus,
Galactus,
the
and then
president.
everybody else
Yeah.
is minor characters who
Yes.
have less than 5 minutes of screen time total.
Yes.
And that's incredible. Oh, there's another character, Franklin Richards, their child.
Yes. Yes.
So within the first 2 minutes of the movie, and I really tried to stay away from trailers and spoilers for this movie as much as I could because I didn't want my expectations to be built up too high, and I didn't want to know too much about the movie. And I knew that Franklin Richards, Reed and Sue's son, was going to come into play, but I didn't realize how quickly. It's the first scene of the movie. Like, it's not a spoiler at all
Yes.
to say Franklin Richards is a part of the movie from the very beginning,
And not
and a
not
very
only
important part of the movie.
Yeah, so I would say not only a part of the movie, but he is like the focal point of the, like the whole premise
Yeah,
of the movie is around protecting him and saving him from Galactus. And so not
right.
yeah, so the fact that that all happened, that was the focal point of the movie, I thought was a bold decision, even more so with just the topic around Franklin Reed, his powers, how they brought him, how they welcomed him into this world,
Right.
in one of the most sci-fi ways possible. It
Yeah.
was just a really, like, it was bold. It was a really
Yeah.
bold filmmaking decision, storytelling decision by
Yeah.
that team that I really do applaud and think was executed really well.
And I think it humanizes those characters as well. Every single character on there you can relate to better because the familial relationship is something that almost all of us, I mean, we have it on some level, but there's a very positive environment, and almost all of us have some sort of positive family to pull on, whether it's uncles or mother, father, son, spousal relationships, brother sister relationships. I mean, best friend for life through Reed and Ben. Like you have almost all of the aspects of family relationships represented on screen, and I think that everyone is going to find one of those relationships they can relate to, and it's going to connect with them emotionally. And I think that's a huge win for this movie and for the superhero genre because sometimes they feel so distant and so other than our real world. But this had that family connection, and I think that is what I loved most about it is that was present there, and I could feel it as an audience member. I was
Yeah.
invested as a member of the Fantastic Four in this.
You were in that on that plane and cheering them on.
I
And
was.
so and so talking about these four characters, like were we talked about maybe the idea of ranking them, but just really more so focusing like were there some that stuck out to you more than others? I guess for me, like I mean I go straight to Sue Richards. Like I just think Vanessa Kirby did an amazing job. I mean, we've
Yep.
talked about, the role, like the female role, and how that has evolved in Marvel from
Right.
Scarlett Johansson and what Black Widow, and then you see that with Thunderbolts. And this was probably one of my favorite executions of that. It's like that mother figure.
Yeah.
I mean, kind of goes into like the WandaVision, like that mother figure, the emotional heartbeat of the team, not so much around thinking of the old Fantastic Four that we both think is horrible. Like not so much just a stepping stool for for Reed. Like there was
Right.
there was an actual person there. Like this, she's the one playing the politics there. She's the one
Yep.
speaking to the people. She is the voice of the Fantastic Four in a way that Reed Richard isn't, and really, as we saw at times, couldn't be. And
Right.
so I just love their execution on her. I did not expect to just fall in love with her character as much as I did.
Right.
And just see that Mama Bear come out for her just really was something I
Yeah.
enjoyed.
No, I think she's the best performance in the movie. She really is. She's the driving force, like you said, and really, it's not like I mean, she has a lot to do in the movie. She has to carry a baby to term. She has to have the baby in space. I mean, but like and then she's the driving force at the end. But like throughout acts 1 and 2, you see Reed doing a lot in preparation and scientific type stuff, and she's like her main role in those first 2 acts is really as mother, and I think that's a story that the MCU hasn't really told yet. I mean, they told it through WandaVision somewhat, but it was in such a different way,
Yeah.
through the different modes of storytelling they chose to do in that show, and it had some more horror elements to it that this is like a very somewhat true and real
Yes.
depiction of motherhood, as opposed to what Wanda had going on, where she had created the children in her mind and everything. And then in the third act, you really get to see that mama bear come out, like you said, and it's powerful and it's real. I mean, that sometimes the looks that she gave the Reed or Johnny, like those are real looks. That is like it resonates in your soul as a husband or a father. You're like, oh my goodness. And like that's a testament to her acting and Matt Shakman's direction on like getting those moments out, because it could have very much felt staged or inauthentic, but I believed that she was the mother of that child 100% of the time,
Yeah.
and that her and Reed were married. And probably Pedro Pascal was the one I was most worried about going into the movie. He was the
Yep.
reason, truly, he was the reason that Fantastic Four wasn't my number one most anticipated movie. And it's not because I hate Pedro Pascal.
Yeah.
I just think he's a little oversaturated right now in Hollywood, and I haven't loved every one of his performances. Some of them felt very the same. I'm not a huge fan of him in The Mandalorian. Not that he has a big role to play. It's mostly his voice, and there's not a whole lot going on with The Mandalorian. I mean, it's well done, but there's not a whole lot to like chew on as a
Yeah.
character. And his performance as Reed, and this version of Reed. And he is perfect casting, and it was a perfect portrayal of this version of Reed. We didn't get the Reed from the previous movies, like you said, where he has to be the leader and he has all this ego and everything. This is a much more reserved, much more fearful, and aware of some of his insecurities and himself. And Pedro Pascal plays that perfectly. He is perfect casting for this version of Reed, and I was not expecting that. And within 5 minutes of the movie, I said, "Okay, I get it." And that part of it was gone for me. That nervousness about him was gone.
No, same here. And for me, because I do love Pedro Pascal. I think he's an amazing actor. I think he's very talented. But the fear for me was that since this wasn't going to be a solo hero movie of just him, was he going to suck the oxygen out of the room? And I think they did a good job in the marketing, in the trailers, to kind of really show that that's not the case. Like, he was the last superhero that we even saw powers for.
Right.
Like, it really wasn't centered around him at all, which I thought was really good. And then you see that remains true in the story, because he very much is not in the back burner, but it's just there's so much room for Sue, for Johnny, for Ben. Like, there's so much room for them to give them their characters, to give them their heart. Like, Johnny was another one. Like, if I did have to rank them, like, it would be Sue, Johnny, Ben, and then Reed at the bottom. And that's a great thing, because I think the opposite would have been like the old Fantastic Four, which isn't saying much, and it just would have taken away a lot of room. Like, this was the healthy lineup of value for each character, time for each character, emotional impact for each character. And I do think that there is probably going to be a longer term game played for Reed Richards' character as he starts to become more involved, working with a team, working with other scientists who are not just as smart as him, since he's the smartest one, but he's going to be presented with bigger challenges than just what Earth 828 was facing. And so I do think that that's really exciting to see, because I think Pedro did an amazing job of setting the tone of where he is starting, and where Sue, Johnny, and Ben kind of already feel fleshed out, and he's going to be the one that we're going to kind of see grow into Doomsday and whatever else Marvel takes us from there. And so I really do think that they nailed it. And like you said, like, it did become a perfect casting, and it took seeing the movie to get that answer, for sure. But we got it, and it works. It works. And that's very exciting for Marvel fans, because they know going forward that we're going to have someone that we're going to be invested in, that knows how, that has that Robert Downey Jr., Tony Stark connection with this character, where they are bringing them to life in a way that feels real, that feels authentic, and was just, executed really well.
Right. I mean, I can see this team carrying the MCU post the next two Avengers movies, because that dynamic was so good and so well casted. And yes, we could rank them in like performance or even power, like by their powers. Like, the Invisible Woman has always been the most powerful, and really probably the Thing is the least powerful. But like, none of that matters, because each of them has a role to play in this movie, and Reed's real power is his intellect, and he is the smartest person on Earth. And that is his main power. Him being able to stretch and move like that isn't the main focus of this movie. And I think that plays into his portrayal. And the strength of this movie is that it doesn't rely on their powers. It relies on who they are as characters, and their powers build on that. Yeah. And I think that's the best part of the movie.
Because there's not a ton of action in this movie. No. Like, it is very, very dialogue heavy, which is in a good way, in a great way, actually. But like, you get like some small little fights at the beginning. You get a short little clash with Galactus on that planet, and then the third act, where it is very action. But that's, like, maybe 15-20 minutes of a hour and 55-minute movie. That's impressive.
It's impressive. And it's not like it was slow. I mean, you weren't going 100 miles an hour, but you weren't going 15 miles an hour either. I mean, it was really well paced. I never felt the length of the movie, and just the way that they told the story was amazing. The fact that they worked in some of their origin and some of their previous like battles with supervillains through this talk show type format where they kind of do a remembering back of the Fantastic Four before they introduce them to us 100% in this movie. And just having that, and in this retro futuristic world, it works because you believe that this is how they would be telling their story on television. It wasn't just thrown in there for exposition's sake, but it felt true to the world. I think
Yes.
that's a hard thing to do, especially when it's a fake world and you're having to build around it.
Yes.
How did you feel about the baby, Franklin, being so involved in the plot of the movie? Because, and maybe I'll just give a brief synopsis of like the true plot of the movie, which is that Sue's pregnant and Galactus comes, or the Silver Surfer comes to herald Galactus and say, "Your end is coming." And they realize that Galactus is after Franklin, who's still in the womb, and so they have to go to space. They have this interaction, and Galactus says, this baby is my successor. He has this burden of eternal hunger, of needing to consume planets, but Franklin, the baby, can stop that and allow Galactus to move on from this never-ending quest of hunger. And so he wants the child to be his successor and to take on this mantle. And so that is, and he only wants the baby. He said he would spare the world if they give him the baby. And that's the main thrust of the movie, the main conflict in the movie is that. How did that resonate with you? And what were your thoughts there?
I thought it was really because it just kind of goes back to just how quick things picked up in that, in the midst of all that, he was also born. And so didn't realize that he was going to become so important in that way. I've always knew about Franklin Richards and his powers and like how he's listed as one of the most powerful heroes in Marvel. So for that to be where Galactus kind of pivots and focus on that, I thought that was just really interesting. And this conflict between giving up the baby or protecting the planet and seeing like which like trying to accomplish both and
Right.
trying to like what Sue said in that speech that I thought was overall good. There was some the ending of it was better than the beginning of it, but that
Right.
statement of like I'm not going to give up my baby for this planet, but I'm not going to give this planet up for my baby. So I think that was just a really good,
Right.
like I liked it. It humanized the story. It made it, and I think this is something that we've always liked about like the Guardians of the Galaxy movies, that the stakes were around them, around the impacts that it was going to have on them, and not like the world ending or this.
Right.
I mean, even though in this case that was part of it too, but it hit
Right.
both, where it hit on that personal string of like losing a family member, giving up a family member, and that wasn't just and that's the thing I love. Another thing I really loved about the movie is that it wasn't just a Ree and Sue thing. It was a Ree, Sue, Ben, and Johnny thing of like we're
Right.
not giving up our family, like we're not giving
Right.
up a member of our family. But then
We almost see the Thing holds the baby more than any other character in the movie.
yes,
It was kind of wild.
I
At a certain
love
point,
it.
towards the end, I was like, he's been holding that baby most of the time, like on screen at least. And it
Yes.
was like that. That's part of what made it feel real.
Yes,
Is
and
that
just
he
like
did.
even like the little things when he was like giving Reed like parenting advice. He was like, I read it in the book. Like you see him like reading parenting books, and this is just like he's the uncle, and so like that, just things like that. Like as a loving uncle myself, is like they just did such a good job of just highlighting that and capturing that. And so yeah, it was interesting. Like I think the birth was probably the one that like really just like it was beautiful. It was just a lot of different feelings. Like it was
Right.
beautiful. It was like, wow, we're really doing this. Like
Yeah.
this is a lot. It was a lot to take in, but overall I just thought it kind of captured the chaos of the situation. I mean, that beautiful shot of Ben passing the baby, floating the baby over space to Sue and Richard,
Right.
and I just thought that was like really cool. So yeah, so it
Yeah.
was it was
I
interesting.
I when we introduced the baby so soon, I got nervous because I was like, okay, when it comes to babies in superhero movies, I have a pretty high standard of. There's been a few times in recent memory that I have not either. It's been not handled the right way, or I just didn't feel like it was done as well as it could have been. So, like, I know we're not going to compare it directly to Superman, but there is a baby in Superman in one of the action scenes.
I was just thinking that
And
when you said it.
yeah, the baby's an alien, and yes, I'm sure he could have survived, but like, it was unbelievable to me that that baby would have survived what he went through, and
Hmm.
it made it hard to connect in that way. At least for me, that's my experience. Other people have told me differently for them, and that's great. Movies are subjective in that way. Or in the Flash movie that came out a couple years ago, where the opening scene is like a maternity ward getting destroyed by something, and babies are flying everywhere. And to save one of the babies,
Oh,
The
that's
Flash
right.
puts a
Oh,
baby in the
I forgot
microwave,
about that.
and like the
And
microwave's
throws it from a
unplugged,
building.
like right, and throws it from a building, and the microwave's unplugged, and like oh that, but like it was meant to be funny, and as somebody who had just had a baby, it was not funny at all, and so like I hate if you talk about one scene in a movie that I despise with every core piece of me is that scene. I think it was a terrible choice. Anyway,
So there's like four others from that movie that I could point out to say I
well,
hate.
yes.
But we can save that
Anyway,
for another
we
time.
can save that for another time. Um, the this was handled really well because it was so real. It was you got to see the characters progress as they were becoming parents through the pregnancy and through the birth, and then as parents moving forward. But then the dynamic between Reed and Sue was really important to believe that they had actually had a baby together, because you do see their characters shift, and you see that because the baby is the focal point of the story and Galactus wants the baby, and Reed, being who he is calculating, what do we do here? And at one, I can't remember the list he gave, but it is um, it solves the problem, it's ethical, and it's convenient. Like all
Yes.
those things, like he listed off like three things, and you go, I can't believe he just said that about his son. And but he's like, but I would never do it. And like that causes conflict between him and Sue, and like it's a real conflict when they go into the nursery and she goes, sometimes you being you hurts me, like destroyed my insides. Like
Yeah.
that feeling was there, and you believed that they were having that interaction. It was true to their characters. And
Hmm.
because again, that could have felt very inauthentic, and they were just having a conversation, or they could have botched. Like if you don't have Reed's background as this guy that is calculating every single possibility at all times, no matter what it is, and you see how intelligent he is, then that falls flat. But it doesn't, and I think that's a testament to the story crafting. But that emotional impact is so resonant with you as an audience member. So
Yeah.
I think I was nervous, especially when they start to put the baby in harm's way, but they did a really good job handling it. And even though I was 99.9% sure they weren't going to kill Franklin Richards in this movie, like I don't think Disney or Marvel is going to do that. You still felt the stakes of him being in danger and him being this pawn in this larger thing. You could still feel those stakes as well, which I think is just that's a testament again to the movie.
And I think another part of those stakes that they did that kind of feeds into that is just how massive and just like the design of Galactus. You
Man,
know, us getting a comic book accurate size of Galactus. I mean, that first scene of seeing him and just and seeing him in comparison to our four heroes, it's
right,
like how like you know like now it gets to a point where we kind of just know how these things are going to wrap up. We know how these fights are going to end, and but there was a serious question in my mind of how are they going to stop
yeah,
this guy eats planets. He eats
right,
like and because his powers are so that in itself is fearful enough. You don't
hmm
really need this deep, dark, philosophy driven narrative behind who
right,
his character is. It's like he is someone who is consumed by hunger, and now hunger is planets. That's that's
right.
that's
That's it.
the cool thing with his character is that that's all you really need to know. Like this is
Right,
someone you don't want to be messing with.
right. But they did add a little bit of depth beyond what we talked about with Mark. We did a Silver Surfer deep dive with Mark Ornberger, the graphic novel Apostle. If you haven't seen that, go back and watch it. It's a really fun episode. We delve into Rise of the Silver Surfer, the
Yes.
2007 Fantastic Four film. We dive into the Silver Surfer animated TV show and a comic of Silver Surfer that involves Shalabal, who's our Silver Surfer in this new movie. But so go back, watch that. But I think they did add a little bit of depth to Galactus here because he has this burden of eternal hunger. It's not just who he is, it's somehow been put on him. And we don't need to know how or why, we don't need a big backstory, but it's been put on him and he's looking for a way out of it. And that gives him just enough motivation to go, not maybe not to full Thanos level of this really compelling villain almost, or really like you can understand how they got to this point, or even what's his name in Black Panther? I'm blanking on
Killmonger.
Killmonger. I was going to say Warmonger. Killmonger in Black Panther, where you have this really resonating villain. But this is just enough that you believe him and you see his motivation, and it's more than just the big, giant bad guy. There is a tiny bit more to him in this version of it. And I really enjoyed that, and I enjoyed that we did that deep dive into Galactus and Silver Surfer,
Yes.
because I think it allowed me to appreciate those characters more. And this Silver Surfer, I didn't think, when we went back and watched Rise of the Silver Surfer, I appreciated that version of Silver Surfer. The rest of the movie is just absolute trash. But Silver Surfer is cool in that movie. And I was like, man, I don't know if they're going to be able to top that. Why are they bringing in Shala Bal as opposed to Norrin Rad as the Silver Surfer? Like, what's going on? And this version of Silver Surfer is so good. And they
Yep.
do so many cool things with her. She actually rides the surfboard as a surfboard multiple times. It is so awesome.
Yes.
I loved every single second of it.
Even a comic point, like a comedic point of like, is that
Right.
is that part of your body? Are you right? Like, how does this work? And
And just riding lava with it and riding, I don't know, something else with it. I mean, it was just so cool that it wasn't just a thing. It wasn't just that's, well, it's the Silver Surfer, so he has to have a surfboard or she has to have a surfboard. No, it was integral to who that character was in this story. And there was a lot of comedic points with it. And Johnny Storm and her interactions, I think, were really, really great and a great subplot to the movie where you had him trying to figure out her language and how to interact with her as the Silver Surfer, as the Herald of Galactus. So, what were your thoughts on Silver Surfer? Just as kind of a quick note, we do have a text group with Mark called Heralds of Galactus, and it's awesome. So, anyway, go ahead. What were your thoughts on Silver Surfer?
yes, I really liked it. I was wondering would there be anything that they add to not justify, but to make the creative decision to focus on her opposed to, why am I blanking on his name?
Norrin Rad.
Was
Norrin Rad.
Norrin Rad. Okay.
Yep.
So what, like, focus on her, then, sticking to Norrin, who we're familiar with, and being the Silver Surfer role. And there was a little bit there where you got her backstory. You see that she has a child. So it kind of goes back to that story of motherhood that we see with Sue. We also see that with her, doing what is necessary to protect their child.
Yeah.
And so I think that little nugget was just enough to kind of justify
Right.
the role change of who was the Silver Surfer in this universe. And I mean, there was just so many cool sequences with her. I mean, that galactic chase at the end of the second, like, kind of I guess the first act, really, where
Right.
they went to go visit Galactus, and that was just beautiful. It was stunning. And like, the ways that she, just that the compassion. And I think that might be
Right.
another part of it too, like the Silver Surfer in in Fantastic Four 2 from years ago was presented, marketed, and kind of shown as a villain. And she even in at times presented himself or felt like a villain. She never felt that way. Like, even in the very first messaging call, there was, hug your love. There was things being said that, were almost comforting in the midst of, oh, by the
Right.
way, this planet's going to die. Spend time with your loved ones. Hold yours close. And then even, the die with, what was the saying that she
Oh,
told Johnny in her language? Die with
Die with yours.
Die
Yeah,
with
just
yours.
die with yours.
just there was a level of like mercy that she was passing on to them, and saw you could see the regret from the beginning where you didn't see
Right.
that in the other one. You didn't know until later on that he was actually not a villain. And so I think they just did a really good job with her. Love the kind of the ending conflict with her in the third act, and how she kind
Yeah.
of stepped in the way she did.
I did not see that coming
I
at
didn't
all.
either, and I
I
think that's
didn't.
what made it great.
Yeah. I
You
was
kind of
really
forget about
concerned.
her. Yeah.
I was really concerned Johnny was going to go, and like it broke my heart for a second, and then she swoops in and knocks him out of the way, and it was like relief, but also like, whoa, okay, it made narrative sense, and it also was surprising, and I think
Yes.
that's beautiful.
Yes, and I think yes, that was good. 'Cause I was like, wait, I was like, did I see? My thought was, did I see his chair in that Doomsday trailer? Like, how is this going to work? Like, I thought he was going to be in the
Right.
movie. Like, how are we going to do Fantastic Four with only three? And like, it didn't. By the time I started really diving deep into those thoughts, she appeared, and I was like,
Right.
okay, I see where they're going, and that this is awesome. Like, some people started clapping. Like, it was,
Yeah.
it got a reaction out of people, so that was cool. And so yeah, I thought it was really they did a really good job. I actually really do like the look of the Silver Surfer and the old Fantastic Four.
Yep.
This one was it was good. I think it was like, I don't know how exactly how he should look. There was parts of it where I don't know. I don't even know how to explain it, but
Yeah.
like the details on her face, just like I feel like it could have been more, not expressive, but just more. It could have just been
Right.
a little bit more detail there. There was a lot of glossing that just kind of took away
Really?
from like being able to see her as someone who used to be a human. And
Right.
so, like, I saw
Yeah.
her, like, when you see her as a human on that planet, it's like you don't even. For me, I didn't even recognize. I mean, I knew it was her because you were telling her backstory. But if you had put those, like, the actress and then her Silver Surfer
Yeah.
persona next to each other, I wouldn't really be able to tell the difference. And that's the part
Right.
of it that I maybe would have wanted a little bit more of.
Right. No, I agree. I agree. When you talk about the comparison to her on Zenla, and the fact that Zenla was in this movie is just awesome.
Yeah, I know.
And then her as the Silver Surfer, it is hard to realize that those are the same actress. And I think maybe less polishing because I felt like this Silver Surfer, not tarnished, but the silvery texture, it had texture to it. It wasn't pure gloss, but it did take away from the actress's distinctive features because she has some
Yes.
distinctive features on her face when you removed all the silver stuff, but it did take away from that, and it was kind of hard. That was one of the things that I went,
Yeah.
wait, is that the same? I agree with you on that. I think
Because
that
it kind of felt like a silhouette, and I mean, that's kind of Silver Surfer just in general. Like, it's literally a
right,
soul. There's no, like, she had hair. That was something that was, different. But for the most part, it was just like almost a silhouette of a woman on a surfboard, and that was just Silver Surfer. So
right,
just like a little bit, like a very little, because I mean, with the action sequence and all those, like, I'm not thinking about
yeah,
that. It was
right,
just that first shot, her coming down to Earth, me seeing her. I mean, from the time I saw the trailers, I was like, oh, okay, like,
yeah,
I get it. Like, I don't hate it, but
yeah,
and so the question I want to throw out to you that I've been,
yeah.
oh, were you gonna say something?
I was, but go ahead. I'll
Oh,
save it.
so
Maybe it's the same thing.
so, and not just throwing in Superman, but just in general. Do you think that we are losing some of the, like, with these stories now kind of throwing us in the middle? Superman threw us 3 years into Superman's journey. This one threw us 4 years into the Fantastic Four journey. Do you think that with losing that origin story, this was a conversation me and my wife were having on the way home, we're losing some of that depth and world building in some of these superhero movies that we used to get when we saw the progression of them being powerless to becoming the heroes that we know them now?
I think it's going to depend on the story. I think that specifically with Superman and Fantastic Four, we had multiple movies before that handled their powers, how they got here, all that sort of stuff. And for the most part, I mean, maybe not everybody, but I think for most part, most people know who those characters are. At least in my world. Maybe not in the world in general. But I think we know their powers, so I think skipping that allows the characters to breathe and go beyond that, to be so we can get more of those intimate moments as opposed to focusing on the Fantastic Four going up space, getting powers, coming back down. How do we deal with this? Oh, there's a
Mm-hmm.
villain now just out of nowhere. Like, it allows them to breathe and to grow beyond that origin story. I think if we're being introduced to a new character, and maybe not even so. I mean, we get Guardians of the Galaxy. They all have powers and are aliens,
Mm-hmm.
and we're just kind of thrown into their lives as who they are. But
Mm-hmm.
when I think about some other introductions, I think we're still going to get some of those origin stories, but I think we've seen enough of them that maybe just that format is played out a little bit. That we don't need as much of an origin story, and especially with some of these worlds already being established. The MCU has been established for a long time. They're superpowered beings. Do we need to see an origin for everyone? And
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I think it's just going to be character dependent and story dependent. If they have a really great and unique origin story to tell, I want them to tell it. But I don't want them to force an origin story on a character that we can just jump right in with and know who they are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that makes sense. I agree. I think this one suffers a little bit less. I think it's less of an origin story problem and more of, and I don't know why, like Superman and Fantastic Four, not trying to go into that comparison, but both of them have a short runtime.
Mm-hmm.
And I do think that they both share the issue of being maybe a little bit too short. I think
Mm.
less so with Fantastic Four than
Mm-hmm.
Superman, but I think really more so around just Reed Richards because
Mm.
of how, because they did such a great job with Sue, they did such a great job with Johnny. I think Thing and Reed will probably be the two that I would have wanted to see a little bit more of.
Mm.
I don't think that they did the best job of presenting Reed as the smartest man of humanity, which is who he is. There was a lot of chalkboard, there was a lot of, writing, some science projects here and there, but there
Right.
wasn't a ton to show the burden that he is cursed with, which is his knowledge, which is, like you said, his
Mm.
superpower.
Yeah.
They showed that from time to time. They show, like little interactions. Sue confronted him. I do think one of the best moments was that moment with him and his with Franklin saying, like, I see you, and I don't have the answers, and that brings me fear. And I
Right.
love, probably one of
Yeah.
my favorite scenes.
Mm-hmm.
And I would have loved to see more of that, more of just seeing Reed Richards
Yeah.
look through the world through X's and O's, ones
Yep.
and twos, because that's how he sees this world, and be able to
Yeah.
see a little bit more of that. And then thing two, just of like, I would have loved to see maybe more of him, him adapting to going from like, because he had the biggest adjustment. Like
Mm-hmm.
he is in some ways no longer a human, and
Right.
as much as I think the old Fantastic Four stinks, I do think that that was one of the very few things that they did get right. Because I mean, he
Mm.
went from like losing his family, losing his wife, refinding love, constantly
Right.
dealing with the weight of that. I mean, it was even a plot point that he was trying to get back to his
Mm-hmm.
original self, where this one felt very comfortable,
Mm-hmm.
even growing out a beard, so
Right.
that was that element of it. I did love how
Yeah.
comfortable he was. I mean, you're 4 years in, so it's like
Right.
he's comfortable in this position, but I would have loved to see more of how he got to that point.
Mm.
I mean, we saw how he was a street kid, like what does that mean for him,
Right.
especially with such an amazing actor as Eban, who I have fallen in love with, and The Bear. I would have
Mm-hmm.
loved to have seen more moments like that,
Right.
and more moments of like that in this world that I just thought was just really cool. And I think it could have raising the stakes of this world being destroyed, because I'm very happy that it didn't get destroyed, because I
Mm-hmm.
assumed that was my take, was that, oh, if they're coming to our Earth,
Right.
then that means they lost.
Mm.
And I'm glad that's not the case, because this world is a really beautiful world, and I hope that one day we come back to it, and when
Right.
in whatever way
Yeah.
that looks like. But yeah, so I just wanted to know, what were your thoughts on like the runtime? Do you feel like this movie did all it needed to do, or were there areas where you felt like you could have gotten more?
Um, for this movie, I feel like I got everything I needed to know about the characters. And maybe a few more shots of Ben in human form, the Thing in human form. I think maybe just a little bit more of that. But I really appreciated that he was comfortable in his own skin at this point,
Hmm.
because I think we have spent time with him being uncomfortable with that, and not that he can't continue to be that, because I think it's underlying for him in this version of the character. It is a very low level depression. It's a very, like, as he opens up in his relationship with Natasha Lyonne's character, who is, we assume, going to be his love interest at some point. I think as we
Hmm.
open up into that, it will allow for that story to emerge a little bit more. I think that allows room for the characters to grow in the future, because we didn't have that. We got to know him in this state, and we will get to know more about that later. And same thing with Reed. I think
Hmm.
because it was such a different version of Reed, and yes, he is burdened with this incredible intelligence, and I believed that he was. He is reserved because he is rooted in fear for a lot of this movie. And if I have to predict his character progression going forward, it's going to be that fatherhood changes that for him, and he realizes that he can't live in that fear state constantly and be a good father. And I think he's going to grow past that, and then something's going to happen, and it's going to push him back to that fear state, or grizzle him, or make him angry, or something like that. And then we'll get that kind of brooding intelligence that I think we may have missed in this movie. But I think because of where I see those characters going, or potentially going, I felt like I got everything I needed out of each one of them in this story. Um, and really, the true transformation of characters came through Johnny and Sue. Sue becoming a mother and taking care of her child, and then Johnny seeing that he does have value beyond the hotshot character that he normally is, and him
Hmm.
having, knowing that his role on the team may not be being Reed, consumed with this incredible intelligence, but he does have a role to play in being an intelligent, capable member of the team. And I think
Yes.
seeing those stories, it was all very subtle. There's a lot of subtlety, but
Hmm.
I enjoyed where the characters ended up at the end of it, and felt like I got everything needed. Because we won't compare it to Superman. We'll talk about that later. But it's very hard not to, because they're both very hopeful superhero
Yes, yes,
movies.
they're
They're
very. I
both
didn't.
different.
Yes, I didn't think they would be so similar.
Yeah,
At like, yes, they're different, but they're so similar at the same time that is
it's
almost
it's really hard not to.
impossible not to just compare these, especially when they came out 2 weeks apart from each other.
Right.
So that doesn't help either. And so yes,
Yeah. I think the last question I have for you about the story is, how did you feel about the ending with
yes.
Sue dying and the baby restoring her? How did that resonate with you? And then we can talk post credit scenes after that.
Yes. So I liked it. The baby got CGI a little
He
bit
did.
there,
He did.
and that kind of threw me off. That's kind of one of the risks when you have like to have a baby, like this young, kind of act out these scenes. Like that's just
Right.
it's a lot. Just that overall conflict, I really did. I did like it. I did enjoy it. Just a little bit of some plot holes there of just like if the Soul Surfer knew that those teleporters would need to be destroyed, why didn't Galactus know that? Like, why is he not just flicking
Right.
these things apart? Like, why is he letting them push him into this porter that he could just destroy with one finger? So
Right.
that threw me off a little bit. It was like I don't care. And then seeing Sue kind of just overpower him like that. I mean, I didn't like it at first when I saw that was the direction they were going with how they were going to solve this conflict. But when I saw that cost her, like there was a cost there. Like she did give up her life to use that amount of power to overpower
Right.
him. And then that did make sense to me. And then, thankfully they had the most powerful superhero in Marvel to just
Right.
be right there to just hit, I guess, pressure, did do something interesting to his, like just touch the right spots of his mom, and then next thing you know, she's
She's
revived.
alive.
So,
Yeah.
but
I
yeah, no, I
yeah.
like I liked it.
Okay.
It makes sense. I liked. I guess to finally answer your question, I like that was the introduction to Richard's capabilities. Oh, sorry,
Yes.
Richard
Yep.
Franklin's capabilities. I
Right.
like that part of it. Him saving his mom. I think that's powerful. I think that is the best way to showcase how powerful he is.
Yeah. No, I think I realized, as I realized that she had died, and knowing that we know the casting list for Doomsday, okay, well, she's going to come back. How's she going to come back? It's probably going to be the baby. And it took me out for just a second. You know, that thought process took me out of the movie for just a second. It was like, okay, there's no stakes again. No one truly dies in the Marvel universe, you know. And there's part of me that doesn't like that. But we've also just gotten this character, and I don't want her to die.
Yeah.
And then putting the baby on her chest, it was almost like a rebirth moment, you know, where after giving birth to a baby, the baby comes straight to the mom's chest, and that's how they start to bond almost immediately. So to have that be the way that he revives her and brings her back to life, I thought it completed that story about her being the mother and about and him being her son. I feel like it completed that, and the way that they did it was really impactful. So overall, I liked it. It did take me out just a little bit, and the CGI part
The CGI,
definitely.
baby.
That's probably my biggest gripe with the movie is there was moments where the CGI 95% of the movie, the CGI is fantastic. You believe every
Yes.
second of it. There's about 5% of the time that it's not great, and it looks similar to Captain America: Brave New World, where I don't know what this tactic is that they're using, but sometimes when they're trying to focus in on a fully CGI character, they start to blur the background a little bit.
Yes.
They did it with Red Hulk, and then they've done it with The Thing as well in this movie, and it doesn't help at all. In fact, it makes it very obvious that that character is CGI to me. And the baby had a few moments of CGI-ness. Herbie, the robot, fully practical.
Really?
Which is incredible. Yeah, that's what I heard was that he's fully practical. So
I mean, it looked like it. Like
Right.
he was great. It looked great, and so,
So-
so I have one question. This will go into the end credits. So putting on your Marvel fan cap that can sometimes be very toxic. Does it bother you at all that there was no ramp up to Doomsday from this movie? Like we don't have any more answers coming out of this movie about what Doomsday is going to look like. Does
Right.
that, like, how do you feel about that?
I feel okay with it. Because of where the MCU has been, it's been hard for it to build. And so I think leaning these last two movies, Thunderbolts and Fantastic Four, and even Captain America Brave New World, these have been our setup movies. Everything else that came before it, I'm not really sure how much of a setup it really was. The whole King thing fell apart. But these last three movies have really pushed us towards the setup in a very subtle way. The post-credit scenes aren't vital to that. I think we can live without them. I think they help build towards it a little bit, but I think we can live without them. And they have been dropping Latveria in our regular 626 MCU, where most of our beloved characters are at. And they had Latveria mentioned a few times, which is Doctor Doom's home country, mentioned in this movie a few times, just in
right,
brief
yes.
passing things. And so there has been some building towards it, even in Daredevil. I think they mentioned Latveria in Daredevil. And so there has been some subtle building towards it, very subtle though. And when I think about Infinity War, going into Infinity War, yes, we knew Thanos was the bad guy. Yes, we had the Infinity Stones, which we've talked a lot about and how that was perfect story building for that saga. This, we don't have the Infinity Stones, but we know Doctor Doom is coming. It's called Doomsday. I don't know if we need a whole lot because when I think about Infinity War, we're introduced to Thanos and he beats up Hulk and we're thrown into it, and then the character, his minions show up on Earth and interact with Tony Stark, and it kicks us off straight into the movie, and we go into the conflict. You could have started that movie without having seen any of the previous MCU movies, and I think you get 90% of the story there with Infinity War and Endgame. And I think we're going to get something similar here because it seems to be a reduction in what you have to know to enter into Doomsday. Is you have to
Yes.
know that the Fantastic Four are there, Doctor Doom is the villain. You have to know kind of that there's this Avengers conflict between Captain America and the Thunderbolts, that they're trying to decide who the new Avengers are. And you don't even really have to know that, but it's probably helpful. So I think these three movies build towards it just enough to where I feel the same going in, maybe not the same, because we had Infinity War done that way and it's Joe and Anthony Russo returning to direct, I feel confident that they can enter us into the Doomsday story and the Secret Wars story with no problem with this
Yeah.
buildup. So,
No, I agree because also the alternative of having this ramp up was just a really great story, and I think that's great. I think that that is a fair trade off any day of the week. Like one of the things that makes me hate that Winter Soldier movie, the Captain America, not Winter Soldier, the Captain America movie, the new Captain America movie, is that
right,
not only was it not a ramp up, but then they also gave us a really bad story.
right,
So it's
right.
just like it was a lose lose where Thunderbolts kind of did both in a way because I do think it kind of ramped things up. It kind of gave us a focal point of like the new you hearing the Avengers word again.
Right.
You seeing like their post credit scene was actually probably a little bit more impactful than
Yep.
the one that we got that we can talk about here in a second. And it also did a great job telling the great story.
Right.
Where this one just told an amazing story, a really good
Yep.
story, and I think that's fine because I think we could have lost a lot. Like when I want more time, I wouldn't have wanted that time to be felt with bringing in Robert. I did
No.
think we were gonna at least see his face, and I'm actually fine with that. I actually don't mind that at all that we don't see his face because I think it
Yep.
will set up seeing him in Doomsday, seeing his face for the first time in Doomsday, this big reveal.
Yep.
But yeah, I did think we were going to at least get that, but I'm fine with not getting that. And I
Right.
think just seeing him, just seeing because there was a pretty good gasp in the theater when and for my showing when we get to the now
Yep.
the end credit scene of it was 4 years later, so now we have a 4 year old Franklin and just Franklin and Sue. She's reading to him, and then she goes off for a second to grab a book. She comes back. She notices something is off. Franklin is not where she left him, and you see Franklin touching, like just kind of interacting with Doctor Doom, and
Yep.
he has his mask. He's holding his mask, so he's interacting directly with Doctor Doom. So,
Yep. I mean, it was.
and
I think it was a great setup. I think Thunderbolts ending. We see the Fantastic Four ship coming in to the 626 world, and then this one we see Doctor Doom is there, and Franklin is interacting with him. And I think that leads. It's probably going to lead that Franklin's going to be a character in Doomsday, and there's something is going to continue there possibly. I'd be surprised if it doesn't, but it did. It was a good post credit scene. I even liked the second post credit scene where they went into the animated TV show. I thought that was a lot of fun.
that was funny.
I had lots of people around me complained that they stayed to watch that. They were like, "This is dumb," and I was, to me, I a fan of Saturday morning cartoons loved that we got that, and I just want an animated Fantastic Four show just like that. I think that would be a really fun way, kind of like they went back and did Spider-Man freshman year, or not what it was called freshman year, Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man,
Yeah.
animated show just recently, and they could go back and do a Fantastic Four animated show.
I mean, like
And I
X
think you
Men
could
'97, which
right,
is amazing.
you
Still
could
one of the
do
best
that.
things.
And I think that's a good use of Disney Plus because I think some of the other
Yes.
complaints is that so much of the Marvel universe has been moved to Disney Plus. Now they're trying to backtrack that a little bit and make them a little bit more separate. That's the perfect way is that you can have these versions of Sue and Reed and Johnny and the Thing, and you can have them interact in a classic TV show. It doesn't have to be long. Give me 6 episodes and I'm happy. So I really, really enjoyed that one too. So I think I'm ready to move in and give our ratings for this movie
Let's do
and
it.
whether it was worth our time. So why don't you kick us off?
Okay, so I will go ahead and go through mine. So we got our 5 categories. We got production
Yep.
value, enjoyment, emotional impact, storytelling, and acting. And
Yep.
so for production value, I'm just going out swinging. I'm gonna give it a 10 out of 10. I just think it was
Okay.
amazing. I think the shots, the color palette, the world, the set design across the board, everything was amazing. I did not go back and watch it, but I did look at screenshots for Eternals. I won't put it above Eternals, but I'll smack it right under in that it is the second best shot Marvel movie I've ever seen. I'll still give Eternals one just because it
Yep.
had more massive set pieces. But in this contained story on
Yep.
this one planet and then out of space, I just think it was just gorgeous. So I give it a 10 out of 10. Enjoyment, I put it at a 7 out of 10. Just because I
Okay.
didn't laugh as much. It was more There was a lot more dialogue, which I'm fine with. I like dialogue, but I do like action, so I give it a 7 out of 10. Emotional impact, I do put 9 out of 10 because I think it hits on some really big topics. I think
Yep.
parenthood, family, caring for others, protecting others. Really like that message. That's always going to resonate with me. Storytelling, I put at 8 out of 10. Those two is just kind of what we talked about. Just a little bit long, just more meat on the bone that could have just been given out. So that I put that there. Acting, 8 out of 10. Same thing. Love all the characters. Think they did an amazing job. I just think they picked the right four people. I
Right.
like
Yep.
across. There was no weak links. And so and because it's such a small cast, that's kind of why I put it 8 out of 10. Because there could have been others to play, but I'm fine with what we have. So I put it
Right.
at 8 out of 10. So that puts me. I did not do the math. I should do the math. Oh, so that puts me at a 42 out of 50.
42. Okay. I agree with you on production value. I thought it was really high. The CG, I am going to knock it a point for the CG.
Oh, I forgot about
That
that.
5%
Yeah.
takes it down from a 10 because it was close. Up until the CGI baby, I was thinking it was going to be a 10 out of 10. I was gonna let go of the issues, very brief issues with the thing. But 9 out of 10 for production value for me. Enjoyment, 10 out of 10.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if I could go see a different Fantastic Four movie and enjoy it anymore. And I didn't laugh out loud a whole lot, but there was humor there. And I thought it was humor that was appropriate for the style of world they were building. It wasn't the quippiness of the MCU, but it fit the characters and it was still funny to me. I don't need Star-Lord type humor in this movie. So
Yeah.
enjoyment for me was 10 out of 10. Emotional impact was 9 out of 10. I didn't cry. That's probably the threshold to get a 10 out of 10. But there was multiple times that I just felt it in my chest and teared up once or twice. The birth scene was it was beautiful, and loved all of the interactions between the characters. So emotional impact, 9 out of 10. Story, 9 out of 10. I don't really know. I can't think of any plot holes. The one big one where why didn't Galactus just destroy it? That's one big plot hole. But I can't really think of a whole lot of others. I think the story flowed really well. It was very well written. There was nothing to complain about. I've heard a couple complaints about the timing of the movie. They're in space for a little while, and there's a 4-month gap of space. But to me, it made sense that it took them a long time with their thrusters being broken and everything to get back. So overall story, 9 out of 10. And then acting, 10 out of 10.
Oh, okay.
Because like I said, I truly feel they casted the exact right people for these versions of these characters. You may take the versions of the characters from the 2000s movies, and they're not the right actors, and it's probably terrible. But these versions of the characters, they are perfect, including Pedro Pascal, who I was a little bit nervous about. But after 5 minutes, I truly believed he was Reed Richards. I stopped seeing Pedro Pascal as we've come to know him throughout culture and society and the internet, and I saw Reed Richards. And
Okay.
everybody else, I 100% believed. So 10 out of 10 for acting, and that takes me to a 47 out of 50.
Okay.
Which
that's
I
pretty
believe
high.
is the highest rating I've probably given to me. I would have to go back and look at Sinners, and maybe I'd have to adjust my scores because if I have to talk about the movies of the year, Sinners is still probably the number one.
Yeah.
So I might have to go back and reevaluate. But I love this movie, and 47 out of 50.
What I'm really excited about is to see where you put it in your rankings. That's what we don't have to
No, we're not going to go into it.
because that'll add another hour to this podcast, but I am very curious to
it
see
is
where
so
you're going to
different.
have. Yeah.
It is so different. I don't know. I
Yeah.
thought about it last. The movie ended, and usually first thing I did is, okay, where's this going to fall? And I looked at it and I said, I don't know. I
Yeah.
really
It's-
don't know where it's going to land because it is so different. It's so self-contained. It's almost like you're starting over.
First steps.
First steps. I mean, it really is. It's going to be a struggle. It's going to be a big, big struggle. I've thought of about 10 different ways that we can change up the way that we rank things, just to accommodate my.
And because I knew
Yeah.
going in, that this movie was just going to be harder to assess than
Hmm.
Superman. That,
Yeah.
and I guess this is just a little part of the comparison of going into this. I knew I was going to have a harder time with this one, regardless of how good or how bad it was, because of the MCU, just like the highs,
Right.
the lows, everything in between. The 40 other movies I can compare it to, where Superman is like, if it was just it just had to be competent. That's all it
Hmm.
had to do. The
Right.
bar was low.
Hmm.
There was like a low bar, high ceiling kind of thing, where this was like a low bar, not that high ceiling, because I just
Hmm.
knew it wasn't going to be able to accomplish anything that would make us be like, we're
Right.
back, Infinity War status, let's go, kind of.
Right.
It's just not, we're just not possible anymore.
Hmm.
And that's okay, because I think the
Right.
alternative of what we're seeing here is a fair trade-off. It's a fair trade-off in 2025 with the state of
Hmm.
movies, the state of how we consume movies. And like, I'm excited. Like, I think it did its job. I think it did what it needed to do. And
Yep.
I'm ready to go see it again. I might go try to see it
Yep.
with our friend Mark, because I really
Yep.
want to get his take on
Yes.
it. I'm
I'm gonna
really
be jealous. I'm gonna be jealous that if you go with him and you get to hear his thoughts before I do, I'm gonna be jealous.
I'm
There's no
so
way I can do that, but
I know.
tonight. But
I hope I
oh,
can. Yeah, I can't tonight. I hope I can. I'm gonna
okay,
try to coordinate our schedule,
okay.
but I really want his take, because I do love that they did show Silver Surfer's hometown, a home planet. Was
Yes,
it
Zenla.
Zenla? Yes,
Yep.
like that was interesting.
Yeah.
I did not think we were going to get that,
Right. I
and
wanted
then the
more of it.
fact that,
If you want to talk about the
yes,
one thing I wanted more, I
that too,
wanted
yeah.
more Zenla,
Well,
which
especially
is
since,
a funny thing to say, but
especially since Johnny was, they were trying to connect to her through
hmm,
John. Like, I think seeing that would have been
yeah.
really cool. So that is another thing that
Hmm.
I would also add into, like,
Yep.
could have added a little bit more. Like, I'm weary, and we can talk about this on a bigger podcast, because I don't get me wrong. I love going to a movie at 7 o'clock. The movie end. I looked at my phone. It's 9:15. Great. It's not
Hmm.
9:45. It's not
Right.
9:50. Like, I'm fine with kind of getting away from these 2.5 hour long movies. But now
Hmm.
we're getting to like these hour and 55 minutes, 2 hour movies, where there could just be like 10 or 15 extra minutes of just
Hmm.
like meaningful world building, meaningful dialogue for some of the gaps, because
Yeah.
things do kind of move a little bit fast.
Hmm.
Like in
Yep.
Superman, it felt that way. In this, like, the way that just the world would just, we need teleporters. Boom, we got teleporters across the world. We need everyone to turn off their
Hmm.
power. Boom, everyone's turning off their power at 8 p.m.
Right.
Just things kind of moved a little bit fast, and that's it. It worked here. Like I
Hmm.
said, I think it's less of a weak point here, but it still could have been a little bit more that gave us more depth to this world, and to some of, some, like I said, Reed,
Right.
Silver Surfer, and Ben's characters.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I it could have had a few things. I didn't. I wasn't missing any dialogue in this movie. I was missing just a few of those notes of maybe not. I don't know if it needs an extra 10 to 15 minutes. I think it may need an extra five of a little bit of Ben Grimm, a little bit of Zenla, maybe a little bit with Galactus, just a tiny bit. Like, we could add a few pieces here and there and kind of build it a little bit more cohesive. Um, and we'll leave the discussion. We've already talked about Superman, and I wanted
Yeah.
more Superman and Lois. But so I'm going to ask you, was it worth your time? And I think I know your answer. I want to know, was it worth, because you're talking about the time,
Hmm.
and that, we have gotten two shorter movies. I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing, and I don't think you do either. But was it worth your money for an hour 55? Because movie tickets are expensive,
Hmm.
especially in the theater that we went to go see it at last night, the XD theater. It's like a $17-18 ticket.
Yeah.
Do you feel like it was worth your time, but then also your money?
Absolutely. I mean, it's beautiful. It's gorgeous, to where you just need to see that on a big screen. Like, you
Mm,
just need, like, seeing Galactus on a big screen like that. Yeah, it's
yeah.
not like the movie trailer ads that they play at the theaters. But yes, I mean, it
Hmm.
it does make a difference. It does
Yep.
make a difference to see that. And so, I will happily pay $18. We both are
Mm,
Cinemark members,
yep.
so we get a little bit
A
of a
little
discount,
discount. Yep.
kind of working the system a little bit there. But for the most part, it's still money that's being invested, and it was
Yep.
money well invested, because it
Yeah.
I'm a sucker for a great story, and this is exactly what I got.
Yep. Yep. I agree. It was worth my time. Definitely worth my money. I feel like it was good for my soul in a way of the more hopeful superhero genre, but also the familial aspects and the mother, father, son relationship in the movie. Just really, really, it took me back to like 2 years ago when we had our son. Like it just did, and that's a powerful thing for a movie to do because not every movie does that, even when they have those elements there. So definitely a value add. I'm interested to hear Mark's comments on everything,
Yes.
but I'm also interested to hear my wife's commentary on the baby being the focal point and even put in danger
Yes.
because I genuinely don't know how she's going to feel about it. And so I think
Yes.
everybody's going to have different reactions to this movie. But I think most of them are going to be positive. I think it has a 92% on Rotten Tomatoes right now, audience
Yep,
score.
I
Those
just saw
are
that. Yeah.
verified ticket sales and everything. And I think it builds great into Avengers. I think that going from Captain America to Thunderbolts to this is a great progression leading into two Avengers
Yes.
movies and feeling confident that they can do something cool with it and hopefully get us back to firing on all cylinders all the time for the MCU because we got away from
Yes.
that for a while. So
Yes.
yeah, that I think that wraps up our thoughts on Fantastic Four. I think I'm excited to dive into comic book movies of 2025 with you on the next one and to see kind of where our thoughts go and where we're thinking about this world. Because for whatever reason, we spend a lot of time thinking about these movies
Yes.
and having a lot of
Yes.
fun with them. And there's multiple rankings. We were talking about Superman the other day with some friends, and you said that you hadn't seen that many Superman movies and that you'd have to go back and watch all the Superman movies. Or if we want to do the DC movies, we would have to rewatch a few, all that sort of stuff. We spend a fair amount of time thinking about it. So excited to
Yes.
dig into that next go round.
No, and it's great because it's like when we started this podcast, when we were having conversations about this podcast, this month was one that we kind of circled on our calendars from the jump. Like it was one of our first conversations of like we really want to be able to be having these conversations by the time that we get to this month where we're going to have two big hitters that are really going to shape the conversation around comic book movies, superhero movies, and it was really exciting then. And so now to be here and to see that payoff, like that's really awesome. And it's been a good payoff. Like I'm really excited to have a more in-depth conversation about these two movies side by side. But just looking at them, just standalone experience from Superman, standalone experience from Fantastic Four, I am satisfied. You said, good for my soul. That's where I'm at. Like both movies instilled a level of joy, a level of happiness, a level of hope that is really exciting if you're someone who's a comic book fan. So that's great.
Yep.
Everyone wins. And so,
Totally agree. So until next time, consume wisely and stay thoughtful.
thank you for tuning in to the Intake Podcast. If you enjoyed today's conversation, make sure to subscribe, rate, and share with your friends. You can watch all of our video podcasts on YouTube at youtube.com/The Intake. You can also follow us on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook at The Intake Pod, and share your own intake experience with us via email at intakepod@gmail.com. This podcast is produced by us, Trevor McManus and Carson Miller.